Hello, hello, hello. This is 3D or 2D.com's The 3D Show.
It came from the third dimension.
As always, I'm your host, Adolph Vega, and with me is
James Tate.
Put on your 3D glasses now. 3D glasses not included.
And if you're wondering what the 3Ds are in The 3D Show, well, they stand for discussion, debate, and the news. I will not be talking about
Disney ruined Star Wars.
and or
The base.
or the bears or
De Beers.
but we will probably talk about
Avengers.
and
Mario.
I do hope you enjoyed the show. The show, get it?
Okay, welcome to episode 53. We got quite a lot to talk about, don't we, Jay?
We got a good amount of subjects, actually. It's kind of surprising, but we do.
Yeah, we took the last week off just because there wasn't that much. So now there's a ton. What do you want to start with?
Actually, I was thinking we could start with some of the biggest news from Nintendo. There was a 3-minute video release showing off the newest console, the Nintendo Switch.
What about NX?
Well, I think that the NX is just was the working title.
Yeah, the code name. So we're going to go after the big boy first, that's the biggest news. Like you said, a 3-minute trailer, which didn't really give you any specifics. You just kind of watched them do things.
There was
get the idea.
I don't know about you, but when I was watching the trailer, I don't know, I didn't really get the feel. Like, all the footage was from, it looked like America, or like a Western country, and all of these people were doing it were white. And, I mean, I don't have any issue with it. I don't think race is a big thing. I'm just saying, Japan usually shows off Japanese stuff. Like, you would think that all the actors in this, or most of them, would be Japanese, or whatever.
Yeah. And
and then another thing is that the music and the entire theme seems very Western to me. And I don't know if this was Nintendo being like, oh, we need to appeal more to Americans. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's what I got from just the start and the very feel of the trailer. It's very. It almost felt like I was watching a PlayStation or Xbox commercial.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because the name of the console is Switch, which is English. It is not a made-up name like the Wii or the Wii U or the DS or the 3DS. It's not a made-up letters and numbers and whatever. It is an actual word. It exists in the English language. So I did get that vibe overall, that it was much more Western. You didn't see any kids playing this. You didn't see any, 7-year-olds playing this. Yeah, that was
another thing that I kind of noticed. And another major thing, just, not even getting into the console, just kind of the feel of it. They kind of showed off a lot of games that, I don't know even if they will be on the console. They were showing off Skyrim. I saw that. They were showing off some NBA game, and I don't know, just the entire trailer and things. It didn't scream Nintendo to me. I mean, besides the console itself, and we'll get into that shortly.
So it kind of had an Apple feel.
Yeah.
Which is, you tell right away that they're running away from the Wii brand. They're not trying to attach this to the DS. This is a new thing. This is not a successor to either one of them. It's a new thing. I mean, and
add on to that, this is a console, just to start, this is a console that we've never seen before, this idea. And what I can do is I can very, very much applaud what Nintendo is trying to do, because what they're doing is saying, hey, we can't necessarily beat PS4 or Xbox One as far as graphics go, as far as the selectability of games or how powerful they are or how powerful our console is. But hey, here's something that allows you to play games on the go or at home.
Now, Sony did try to do something similar with the PlayStation and the Vita, where you could do some of this, but it wasn't as direct.
But it was not as much. Like, it wasn't the power of the trailer. You see, calling back to the Skyrim, you actually see someone playing Skyrim and he's like running, or his character is like moving, and then he just puts it on the console and it goes immediately to the TV. So it's kind of like the connectability is there. And, you know, obviously this must be powerful enough to run high-resolution games because you can play like Breath of the Wild and things on it.
So that's the first question we need to discuss. How powerful is this thing? I think NVIDIA said that it was a Tegra chip, that's a customized chip, and they didn't. I think at the very least Wii U level, because it could run Zelda. So are we like in the PS4 range? That is a portable PS4 basically, because at the same time, the more graphics you have, the worse battery life you have. So that's one aspect of this thing. That how bad is battery life? It's going to be like a 2-hour thing, or it's going to be like a.
I'm not sure. I think that's one of those issues where they're just going to have to. It's going to be a hoop they're going to have to jump through as far as that goes.
Now, James, let's actually just discuss what it is. What is this device? What is the Switch?
Okay.
Does anyone?
We'll get past the introduction, just talking about the actual console. So the Nintendo Switch is, as I said before, something that we have never seen before. And how it is something that we've never seen before, it's kind of a cross-platform device. Now, what this means is that you can take, you could be playing a game at home, decide, I got to go somewhere, and then take basically the, almost like looking a lot like a gamepad from the Wii U, only slightly smaller, and take it on the go. And this is a really cool idea. And why I say this is because the majority of gaming and the majority of games that are sold by Nintendo and the entire Japanese market is very based on portability.
Yeah.
It's very based on when I thought about the Switch, actually, I more thought about Japan, like getting more of a Japanese audience because, Japanese are always on the go. They got to go to work. They got to take the
subway.
train, the subway,
Yeah.
So that's what I got from it. But this is really interesting. Like it uses, and from the trailer, we can actually see some of those rumors coming true. Like, for example, we see someone putting a cartridge in the console and turning it on. So that rumor is true. The whole cross-platform thing was true. So far, that's all I've seen as far as rumors go.
So we do have the control. Remember the control. We got to talk about the control system here.
Okay, so as far as concerned, the controller is really diverse because, it has like 3 levels almost. Okay, so there is the gamepad controller, which has buttons on it. You can just play it from there. But also there are controllers, those smaller controllers, connected to the gamepad that you can take off and then play without even holding the gamepad.
Yeah, those are actually called Joy-Con R and Joy-Con L. So they snap on to the actual screen, and you can actually play, with that. And they actually can use them independently. So you can have the screen in the middle, and then one person use the Joy-Con left and Joy-Con right, and then they play with that there. And you have the same button layout on either one of them. So you have the 4 buttons, you have the stick. You don't have a control pad, which is the first time in a long time ever that Nintendo has not had a directional control pad on here.
Yeah.
Which is obviously why, because they wanted to make sure that it works either way you play it, So It has these controllers that you set aside, and then you could, when you're at home,
and one thing that you'll notice about these controllers is they almost look like a sideways Nintendo Entertainment System controller. That's what I got from, I got a very, small, basic button layout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's everything you need, Yeah.
The only problem I can see from this is that you might lose one. I don't know. That would be that'd suck. You'd be in your airport or whatever and just leave one of the controllers there and never find it. But, I bet you, though, it will be like one of those things where you can buy extra.
Oh, yeah. I could bet that, that'd be $19.99 to buy a new piece of that hardware that you lost, And,
and then the third one, so there's the pad, there are the controllers connected to it, and then also in addition to that, there is a Nintendo Switch controller, like an actual game controller. Like it looks a lot like the Xbox One or the PS4. And interestingly, to describe it, it looks like a mixture between the Wii U Pro controller and as I said before, the Xbox One. That's what it looks like. It's really kind of weird. Now, my question for this controller, though, is will you be able to use this controller on the gamepad? Oh, no.
So, okay. You connect the screen to the TV with a dock. And the dock charges it. It's called and then that connects to the TV. So that way you can play your game on the TV, and you just take it out of the dock and then put the Joy-Con R and Joy-Con L left or right on there, and then you're ready to go. Or you could have the Pro controller, which you mentioned, and play that at home instead of that. There's also a grip part where you put in the middle, so that way the Joy-Con left and right can just connect into there, and then there you go. And you can just play that. You don't have to buy the Pro controller. It's just an option, I guess, for other people. I guess that's the way they could do multiplayer. I could have the Pro controller. You could have the Joy-Con grip with the, so.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I can say this for sure. They need to avoid a Wii U catastrophe like last time, they need to make lots of commercials and really push this thing to begin with on the internet and as many platforms as possible. Because the problem with the Wii U launch was that a lot of people got confused and just thought it was just the Wii, but an extra addition to it or something.
Yeah, and I think this is actually the number one Nintendo YouTube video. They posted this on YouTube, so it's gotten a huge amount of hits. And I think
it's not like the Ghostbusters trailer. A lot of them are likes. It's not dislikes. So,
now, a few things. We have not, there's no indication here that it's a touch screen, which I'm still going to assume it is, but we don't know that for a fact. You get touch screen from here?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't really get that. And the thing is that touchscreen wouldn't work for a lot of games, again, like Skyrim or something like that.
Yeah. So, that's a good question because we're pretty much been spoiled on every single screen being a touchscreen now. Everything is a touchscreen. So it is, that's one question. And two, if it's a touchscreen, is it the old school touchscreens like the DS and 3DS have, or is it the modern touchscreens which tablets and phones have? The capacitive touchscreen versus the resistant touchscreen. And so if it's a modern touchscreen, then how would you play older games on here that use a touchscreen? And so that makes that interesting. And then another thing, related to us directly, there's no indication at all that this has stereoscopic 3D. And I'm going to assume it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to have 3D.
So, and yesterday, I actually put up an article on the website, 3D2D.com, where through Famitsu, they confirmed an interview Nintendo had with Famitsu Magazine, which is a Japanese publication. They said that the 3DS cartridges are not compatible with the Switch console. So it uses cartridges, but it's not a 3DS or DS system. It's a new system. So a lot of people were disappointed. It made sense, if it's a portable, why not play those? But at the same time, you have a lot of questions with resolution and touchscreen and, all that kind of stuff. So it looks like it's not at all going to do that. Maybe the 3DS is just going to continue on and be a separate system altogether. But, it's kind of a tradition Nintendo's had with, for years. The 3DS can play DS games. The DS can play Game Boy Advance games. The Game Boy Advance can play Game Boy Color and Game Boy games, and this is going to break that, which, Nintendo is trying to say it's a home console first, not a portable. It just has a portable feature, but it really is both. So in a way, you got to see it like the successor to 3DS and to the Wii U. It is both. You could, play your portable games, and you could play, because Nintendo is not going to be making, I don't think they're going to make a new 3DS. I think that's it. After the, new 3DS, in a year or two, that will be it. It will be next.
It's not like there's going to be new 3DS 2.0,
Yeah, so that's really important to mention that. I don't think it's going to have 3D, which is sad, but it is what it is. I'm not,
I kind of wonder, as far as, 3D games and, it's is Pokemon going to be the next, Generation 8 or whatever, not this generation. Is Generation 8 and onwards, because Pokemon has always been a portable game thing, is it going to be on the Switch now?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. How do mobile,
mobile game franchises, the franchise that they had just for mobile, almost exclusive. I know Pokemon games, when they're spin-offs, are on the console, but there's never been a console, official Pokemon game.
Yeah, there's a spin-off, but not a real die-hard generation.
Yeah.
Pokemon. So that's actually a really, really good question because, excuse me, we don't know how 3DS developers are going to go on here. The 3DS is relatively cheap compared to, Xbox 360 or One.
And also the Japanese market is most accustomed to it. While I don't think that they will make a 3DS 2, I'm not sure that completely ditching it once it's coming out is a very good idea.
Yeah. Because you get a different, you're going to cost a lot more to make Pokemon on the Switch,
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
And people are going to always expect super high definition games on the Switch if it's not the same thing. People have lower expectations when it comes to the 3DS and the DS line, the games, because the DS and portable games have always been far inferior to the home console.
Yeah,
it's always been that way, and now it's the same. It's the same system, literally. Switch is you take it home, you take it out. You could, and is it going to be weird to play games that are not as high budget because they don't look as good as other games? So
yeah,
let's talk about the game. It's going to have cartridge, which I'm actually fine with. You can make pretty huge cartridges on this thing. You can make a 64 gig cartridge, on a SD card without a problem. They're not that expensive anymore.
This will be what's really interesting. This will be the first console since the Nintendo 64 to have cartridges.
Yes. So, which means also that are the days of PlayStation and Xbox, where you have to download all these things on there and, install the game onto your system and all that kind of jazz. Is that going to be something that is going to be happening here? Because it's on the cartridge. You just have everything on there, or is it going to be, one of those weird things? So we'll see, but I think it's going to make it easier. If, for a fact, 64 gigs is in that little cartridge, that's going to cover 90% of the games coming out now. You don't have to worry about, disc 2 or downloading, So, and that's going to make things a lot faster to read because, part of the install process on Xbox and PlayStation is to make things faster. So that way you're not dependent on the drive. But cartridges are super fast. So, obviously it doesn't have a disk drive, so we can play Wii U or Wii games. So now we did see some Wii games on here. We did see a version of Splatoon.
We saw like Super Mario Kart or something.
So Mario Kart of some kind, which looked kind of similar to Mario Kart 8, but
yeah, it looks similar.
Not exactly.
Are these going to be? Okay. I guess my last question about consoles that have not been answered yet is what's going to happen to the online community? What's going to happen to the apps? Like, all the apps that the Wii U had, like Netflix and things, because I use the Wii U for Netflix and things. And, I mean, you can do it on other consoles, and you can do it for your TV or your Apple, but that's just something that I'm used to. What's going to happen to those? We haven't seen if the console is going to be able to have a community, have like the Miiverse, yeah. And also, what's going to happen to the Nintendo Shop? Are they going to get rid of that?
Okay, those are really good questions. So that's the thing. This video gave us a lot of information, but then left us with so much more that we don't know.
Yeah, but what we basically do is like, okay, well, I have all these questions.
Yeah, Nintendo did say that they're not going to have anything to announce until next year. So this is it. That's all we're going to have.
Well, this is just a tease of that, right?
Yeah, it's enough to know what the system is, what it could do, and then, I'm guessing, I'll put myself on the line here, mid-January, we're going to get a Nintendo Direct giving us everything.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm guessing that because after the holidays, no one could cry about, oh, you're lying to us. No, you knew this system's coming out, and mid-January is, pretty dead month in games, and they'll say, this is the release date, this is the price, this is the games coming on it, this is everything you could do. And yeah,
also have a good list of launching titles.
Yeah. So, okay, we mentioned Mario. It looked kind of like Super Mario 3D World, but not exactly. It kind of,
it kind of looked different a little bit.
And then, we saw Splatoon, which didn't look exactly like the Wii U version, but a different version. So the question is this going to have Wii U ports, and are they going to be enhanced? And if you already own those games on the Wii U, are you going to be able to upgrade to the Switch version or what? Because I got Splatoon, and I would want it to how does that work? How does eShop work? Like you said, we don't know if your games will be downloadable. We think so, but how much space is this going to have?
Right. You know how they have GameCube and then like Super Nintendo and all. If I download those, will I be able to take them on the go? Does that mean I can play like, I don't know, like Mario 64? Like just
Great question. And, what about the previous system? What about the Wii U games they downloaded and the 3DS games, like Virtual Console? Like Mario,
that's what it looks like, unless they pull a bunch of games from the Wii U. I mean, we're just speculating here at this point. So
yeah, and
it's really big news. And so I think that was probably like what's getting the most media attention right now.
So yeah, there's so much there. There's so many things. We don't know the operating system. We don't know if this is Android-based, if this is in their own thing. Like you said, Miiverse has always been with a touchscreen. I don't know if you ever noticed that. So, that's something that they are going to have to incorporate. And Miiverse, if it's going to expand, now, here's a good question, James. Is this going to have LTE coverage, or is it going to just be Wi-Fi only? Because if you have a portable system like this and you have a real game, can you play online with the system when it's not at home? That's a good question,
Well, would that mean you have to sign up for a plan or something?
Exactly.
Would there be like a subscription service maybe?
Yeah, maybe we're like AT&T or Verizon has a deal, just like you can get your tablets or whatever, And then how much is this thing going to cost? How much do you think it's going to cost?
Yeah, that's another thing. I think that's the elephant in the room.
Okay, I'm going to guess at the very least 300, maybe even 4. I think 4 might be a realistic number.
I think 4 is the most realistic number.
But that's extremely expensive. Nintendo could spin it and say, well, you don't need to have a, portable and a home console. You can have both. But then it's still, what is it, the Xbox, One S and the PS4 Pro are now both 300. So
another question I have about this is that when is this coming out? And if it's before Christmas, why?
Okay.
Why would you release a console like this in the middle of the year?
Okay, they did say this at the very end. It said March 2017. So the reason why is all about the investors, all about having it within the quarter, so that way it could be in the fiscal quarter, and then they could say, look, our numbers, we're doing really good in this fiscal quarter. Please invest in us further for the next fiscal quarter. That because they're going to have a massive loss this quarter. The Wii U is basically worthless right now. I love the Wii U. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It's not selling at all. The 3DS is selling, but it's not going to be that much more. I think everyone that wants the new Pokemon Sun and Moon already has a 3DS. There's a very small amount of people that don't want a 3DS, the new 3DS is selling well, but it's not like a super huge seller, so it's not going to be a good fiscal quarter for Nintendo. It's going to look bad. So having this at the very end will be like, okay, look, we got a new system out. We're going to focus on this new system. We're going to focus on the new 3DS, and that way it looks good for them. So that also means that Zelda is likely going to come out in March as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're just assuming it's a launch day console title, though.
Yeah. So. Okay, if you just saw the stuff in the video, if they do, Mario Kart 8.5 and a Splatoon 1.5, Mario Kart Splatoon, a version of Mario that seems like it's new, it's a brand new Zelda game, that's going to be a pretty killer lineup right there. Besides, they did show off a good amount of third-party support. They had a screen with all these third parties there. And they also mentioned, DNA is going to support it, which is making it mobile games. So here's another good question. Are the mobile games going to work on this thing? Are you going to be able to play Mario Run or, Pokemon Go on this? If so, you would need an internet connection,
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of questions here. Is this going to be region-free? Is this going to be, Japanese? If you're going to take it to go, it'd be really nice to not have to have regions. You could take that system to Japan or whatever and, buy a game there, So we still got 1,000 questions over this thing, and we're not going to get any answers until next year. And, okay, from what you've seen, what do you think of the actual appearance of it? Do you think it looks good?
I like it. It still has to grow on me, but I like it so far.
Now, okay, we got to mention that because it's actually going to change. Remember the Wii U, the first time we saw it, it had the circle pads and the sticks instead of the actual control sticks. Yeah. And, usually, the DS looks way different than the actual DS they showed off in the first time the hardware was shown off. So we have precedent where it may look cleaner and sleeker when it actually comes out. Are you okay with the name Switch? Do you want it to be
like a more modern title for it, and not like some weird Japanese thing?
Would you rather just be in the new Nintendo Entertainment System or the new,
I also think that it's kind of interesting how the title is like Nintendo Switch instead of just the Switch.
Yeah.
Only because we haven't really had Nintendo in the title since the Nintendo GameCube.
Yeah, and then, okay, here's another question. That screen, they say it's high definition, but how is it really high definition? And how big is it really? Because it looks,
My question, I guess, my leaving question before we move on is, how are they supposed to play, like, these high-res games on the go?
Yeah.
You know?
So, how is it going to be, like an actual 1080p screen, or is it going to be 4K screen? Is it 4K ready? We don't know that.
Is it going to be potato quality if there's not good Wi-Fi? I mean, who knows?
Is it waterproof? All phones now are waterproof. Is that going to be waterproof? Is it going to have, it does have a headphone jack, unlike the iPhone. Is it going to have, all these other things that we don't know? We have so many questions left. I'm still, unfortunately, going to bet, 90% sure it does not have stereoscopic 3D. What do you think? I think
it might.
It might, but
I wouldn't bet on it.
I do hope it has SD card support, so that way you can just, save games onto the SD card, like you did on the 3DS. And, like you said, how much are the little adapters going to cost? Or we have multiple ones, Are we going to have ones with more buttons? You did see that.
Another question is, can you have multiple? And like, if it's a port of the Mario Kart 8, will you be able to have like 4 of them for 4 people to play?
Yeah. You did see split screen gaming. Is it going to have 4 players split screen? And it's really small. Is it actually going to fit in your pocket? Because if it's, bigger than an iPhone 6s Plus, it's going to be hard to fit that in your pocket,
Yeah, that's another good question. Like, how are you, like, the 3DS or new 3DS is big, but it's not ridiculously big.
It looks like the same size as the gamepad, I could not fit that in my pocket. You need to have a purse or something.
A Nintendo Switch purse.
Yeah, a Nintendo Switch handbag or, over-the-shoulder thing, so that way it doesn't seem, because Europeans are okay with men having purses, but us Americans, we don't like purses. So,
Also, let's just say, like, this, like, on a social level, this will be kind of a strange console at first, because, like, I can just imagine, like, the sheer, like, shock of if I just walked into class or walked into lecture one day and just pull out Skyrim and start playing it. Like, it'll be weird.
Yeah, it'll be distracting to other people. There's going to have like a privacy screen because that way people don't see what you're playing,
Well, I mean, it's just, people are more familiar. I mean, the 3DS might be strange to some people, but it's way more familiar than this,
Yeah. So we got so many questions here in this thing. Is it possible to play, games you downloaded before? If you downloaded a 3DS game, could you play it? Or virtual console games from, NES games, or, if you had, those kind of questions are important too. Is it going to have that system where you downloaded this game before? Because, Nintendo Wii U had that where it knew you downloaded it on the Wii, but it charged you $1 to play on the Wii U, to upgrade fee. Or is it going to have an upgrade fee for this, or is it going to just be, you got it, which I prefer, just give it up. Just let people have it. If you already bought it digitally and you have your account connected, just let it be connected. I don't want to have games on my 3DS that are not going to be on the, Switch. If you can play 3DS games on here or DS games, how's the screen going to, stretch or fit, So there's a ton of questions here. Let's move on to some of the other topics we got. Let's go to Logan, which is the next and final Wolverine movie. Got a teaser trailer, actual decent trailer. What do you think of it?
This thing looks like a really interesting film because it looks nothing like the other ones.
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
not more serious.
like, honestly, this, like, I've never seen a more disunified trilogy. Like, every movie you watch in this is a completely different movie, just with the same character. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the first one is like a origin story, and the second one is like a Japanese
it's like an
story.
over-the-top origin story that doesn't make sense and isn't very good. And then you got the second one, which, let's face it, is just a dumb action film that takes place in Japan. And it's like an R-rated, I guess, action film. But, like, just a feel for it. You know, Wolverine looks different. Another thing that I've noticed that's really weird about this is that it's not even called Wolverine. It's just called Logan. And, okay, my only issue with this is that the mainstream public knows him as Wolverine. So,
Yeah.
when you think Logan, you don't think Wolverine for most people.
So yeah, I think that's part of the reason why you had to have the clause in there. And you know, everyone knows who, you know, Hugh Jackman is in the X-Men, and if you see him, you know he's a Wolverine. So I think it's just, you know, having that confidence there of knowing.
Yeah,
that's it.
but I can see some people being like, "Who's Logan? Wolverine is the only one with claws." Like, you know, you can see that people getting confused.
Yeah. So okay. And this trailer is much more serious, much more dramatic. And I think it looks really interesting because the first, especially the Johnny Cash song, which is an amazing song, you know, where he hurts himself. And that song, you know, you can't tell that Wolverine's been through a lot. This is set into the far future. We don't know how far. Seems like 30, 40 years into the future. And, like, Professor Xavier's in here, and he looks ancient. You know, Professor Xavier played by the original Professor, Picard, Patrick Stewart, not the newer, younger one. So, and you do get a little girl there, and you know, we mentioned this before in our thoughts on the movie, that if they're going to have X-23, and I think this is confirmation that it is going to be a story where, you know, Logan Wolverine is going to be passing down the mantle to this girl who is a clone of him, you know, in the comics. Or it was originally in the was it the Warner Brothers, the CW's cartoon, and then it got put in the comics.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a story about how, you know, the mantle is pushed forward, and she's now Wolverine, and he has to do something, you know. I think it looks pretty good. For X-Men movie, I think it looks pretty good. What do you think?
I think it could be interesting.
So, yeah, it's going to be R, too, and it looks more violent, more gritty, and I like it. It seems like much more of a adult movie than the last X-Men movie, Apocalypse, which is a bad movie. You know, it's not totally awful, but it's not great at all. So we also had another trailer here for Rogue One, Star Wars story, and I'm liking this a little bit more, but I think a lot of this has to do with the cinematography and how well shot it was. It looks gorgeous. The movie itself still is whatever, but the shots they had were really pretty and, like, just had really great landscapes and viewpoints and, you know, cinematography-wise, A+. But the movie itself seems okay. Rogue One looks better, much more prettier. What do you think?
You know, yeah, I kind of like the tropical thing, but, you know, they kind of showed that off a little bit. Kind of. It's just, I'm not, the thing that I'm not sold on is just the plot. That's all. Like, yeah, it looks kind of better than it originally did. But first of all, like, it doesn't really even feel like a Star Wars film to me, personally. Like, it just kind of feels like a generic sci-fi. And then the second thing is, like, I don't know, I'm just not sold on it yet.
Okay. That seems fair. You know, I'm still, I think, on the negative side, I think a lot of people seem to be really excited for this movie. And I think it might be good, but my expectations are really low. So, it might look interesting. I just don't know if the characters are going to be there, that, if it's going to be a one-shot, how are you going to have everything in there, make it work?
Yeah, and what does this have to do with anything? I mean, are any of these people even going to be alive by the time of episode 7? Because, they'd be aged 30 or 40 years.
True. I think at the very end, somehow, you'll have to have R2-D2 in there, and you get the plans given to him, and then you basically start episode, 4. So it's going to, I think, really be a big connector between, it's not going to be episode 3.5. It's going to be more like episode 3.9, So that last little story between, there's still some decent amount of time between 3 and 4, Revenge of the Sith and The New Hope, for anyone who's not paying attention. So, yeah, I'm more positive, but not super excited for this. All right, so what do we want to talk about next?
We can actually knock out the third trailer, the third major trailer. It's Guardians of the Galaxy.
So this one came out, and it's a real teaser. It's not a trailer, really. You get nothing here.
You get nothing here. It's just showing off some of the stuff that will be in the film, and you learn absolutely nothing. You see Yondo, but you don't see any new characters. They use a song from the first film, and so it's not like they're showing off a new soundtrack. You don't know anything from the trailer besides, hey, we exist.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point, is just to remind people it's coming, and we'll have a little trailer,
and I don't know why. I just, from the teaser, and I hope this isn't true, I kind of just got feeling, this is a Guardians of the Galaxy 2. This is kind of just like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but different. I don't know. Me personally, when you make a sequel to a film, you need to make it distinguishably different. If you watch the trailer or even a teaser for Winter Soldier and Civil War, they're completely different films.
Yeah, I see your point.
So, I don't know. That might be a non-issue. But yeah, so it's, it had one of the songs from the original. We got to see some split shots of an explosion and them flying around, but that's it.
Yeah, you got also at the very end a little scene where Groot and little baby Groot is there with the raccoon Rocket, and that was the very last shot of the movie was they shoot a gun and the screen kind of burns up and you see them and that's it, and it seemed okay. I kind of am worried like you that it's maybe just too much of the same. It's not a real successor. It's not just I don't know. I agree. I agree with what you said. That's more, not a sequel, but just another. I guess that's what it's called, Volume 2. But it's not a Part 2. It's not upping the ante. It's not having more. So.
I don't. And I don't. I'm not for that decision. I think that they should go in a radically different route. All the Marvel sequels, their problem has never been to me feeling too much like the original. You could argue Iron Man 2 maybe, but I think Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 1 are different in their own ways too. But to me personally, there has never been this problem, and I hope it's not an issue.
Now,
but we don't know much about it.
Now, we got a good segue here. Speaking about Marvel and sequels, we got more information on Thor 3 Ragnarok. Now, what did you get about this, James? Because it's really out there.
Okay, so they basically said that the third Thor film will basically be a standalone sequel. A standalone sequel is kind of what I was talking about with the Wolverine trilogy, where the film is a sequel, but it's only a sequel by the fact that it has the same characters in it. It's like it doesn't relate to the previous films at all. And I think that this works primarily because Thor has never really been an overarching story. It's always just been we're in Asgard and someone tries to kill the entire universe, so we have to stop them. It's never necessarily been have a formula or anything.
Now, there is, ongoing thing with the brother Loki and how he is a player in Asgard. Now, that story element was left hanging in Thor 2.
I think that they might keep it in Thor 3. I think a lot of people would be upset if Loki was not in Thor 3 or he just was, like, there but didn't really do anything because, I guess that's just something that they set up,
Yeah, he's been an integral part of the Thor movies. It has been Thor and Loki, basically, movie, all of them.
Yeah.
And so we got to see that. And I think the director said that she doesn't really care what else has happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and that it's going to be the strangest, the craziest movie ever. It's, they're going out on a bang, and they're going to make sure Thor is relevant and all that.
I don't know why. I just, I kind of see this as arrogance, and I don't see this because of this way. There's a way of saying our film is going to be different and not necessarily connected to the other films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without tearing down everything he did before.
Like Guardians of the Galaxy,
So, we'll see. I think Thor Ragnarok has potential. I think the Thor movies have been, the weakest link of all the Marvel movies. The standalone movies they're the weakest ones, I think. I like Captain America, I think, the most. I think Iron Man's underneath them, and, we haven't, Hulk is going to be a big part of this movie. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, And,
it's one of those things where we'll have to see what exactly he means by that, what he means by, I don't really care what happens in the other films. Because this film might be important to the story, the overarching story, if it has a stone in it,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right, what do you want to talk about next?
How about we, actually, this is something that I forgot to mention, but some people online or some news site, I don't know if you ever heard about this, but the news sites that are talking about not the Luke Cage, but the Iron Fist trailer, right? And there's some controversy because Iron Fist is white, and apparently there was an Asian Iron Fist who wanted to be Iron Fist, but for some reason they decided to pick him, and he's obviously, he's not Asian at all. And people are complaining because it's like, well, this won't be the Luke Cage for Asians. And, it's just kind of stupid. And I don't say this because I'm always one to bring this up, Luke Cage is a white character. He's never been Asian. And I don't really see the point of making a mention just to kind of okay, Luke Cage appeals to the black people, Iron Fist appeals to the Asians. It seems stupid to me.
I don't know anything about Iron Fist, so I really, whatever, I think he's a minor character. I mean, he's such a minor character that he hasn't been introduced yet, and he's getting his own TV show, which is kind of weird because, at the very least, we got some Marvel TV connecting together. Like, we got a little bit of Luke Cage being in Jessica Jones, and we got some characters from Jessica Jones being in Daredevil. And I watched all of Luke Cage's TV show, and Iron Fist is like basically mentioned in a poster, and that's it. He's supposed to be good friends with Luke Cage, and there's not a speaking role, there's not a walk-on role, so they're just kind of throwing him out there, and I don't know.
Yeah. He seems definitely the most disconnected from all the other shows. Even Luke Cage mentioned, or loosely mentioned, Daredevil, even.
Yeah, so it's very, I don't know. I think I heard some of that, but whatever. At least it's, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, really. Let's move on. So we got a picture of Mira from the upcoming Justice League, which is the wife of Aquaman, and we get to see her picture. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't, actually.
Okay, I just sent it to you so you can look at it. So, it's Zack Snyder having the super dark colors on the screen. She has red hair. She's wearing a green suit. Have you seen the picture?
I'm kind of wondering one thing about why is it that, like, she kind of looks like the common counterpart, but Aquaman doesn't look like his? Is it because the Aquaman that was used in, like, everyone knows is too silly?
Yeah, I guess that's actually a pretty good point because, she does look very comic book accurate, almost perfect, except for being too dark, which is just his obsession with having dark photos.
Yeah, like Aquaman is supposed to be a blonde-ish, a white guy,
So, I don't know why this is such a big deal, considering that I don't expect her to be in Justice League for more than, 5 minutes. If that, the wife of Aquaman is not a big character in the Justice League movie. It's going to have Flash, Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
So this is, when she will probably have a huge role in the Aquaman movie, and that will be more justified. She actually has some pretty interesting powers too, right? She could control water itself. So, it's just something that's popped up that I wanted to really quickly go over. So let's move on to video game news. Because we were talking about the big one. Let's talk about Pokémon, another big one, which is Sun and Moon just had a demo. And in this demo, it does not have 3D except for one part, which is disappointing because X and Y and the previous one, was it Omega or Sapphire? Yeah. They had 3D, but it was not well implemented. And people said that it was really choppy and it was kind of slow, and it just didn't, people didn't really like it. So people were like, okay, well, maybe that's just because that's the first engine, and, they're going to make this engine from scratch, and this is later on in the 3DS hardware history. Maybe on this new 3DS they'll have it. Nope. So the 3D element of Pokemon Sun and Moon is not present unless you're playing a mini game or a mini aspect where you can take photos of the Pokemon. Then when you're in first person, you can see it.
Stupid, man. I mean, why not make it 3D compatible?
Now, it's actually pretty interesting. People have mentioned that in the demo, it causes the 3DS to have a soft reset. Like certain other games on the 3DS that I guess max out the potential of the 3DS, like Smash Brothers, it has a soft reset. So it kills the internet browser and Miiverse from being in the background. So the game itself will run, but it will only run without those things in the background. On the new 3DS, it's not a problem. But on the old 3DS, it runs well, but you can't have the internet browser or the Miiverse. So they're thinking that maybe they're just maxing out the 3DS's hardware here, so they couldn't really do 3D in normal gameplay. And I guess that makes sense. The game does look nice. I've played the entirety of the demo. The demo itself is maybe a good 15 minutes long. It's actually pretty satisfying because you start off, you're already given a Pokemon, you get a little bit of the story, you get to do a little bit of exploration, and you find, have a boss battle, and then it ends. And you feel satisfied that you got a taste of what the game actually is. I felt satisfied from it. The thing is, though, since I haven't played a Pokemon game since Yellow, it really feels different. It really looks kind of aimed at a younger audience than me. I'm 33, and it kind of seems to be pointing toward, younger kids, like 10-year-olds kind of thing, just how it looks and how it presents itself. And the gameplay itself was really easy. Like, I really didn't have much of a challenge at all, which, it's a demo. They're probably just making it so you could, win automatically. But it is disappointing that, at least on the new 3DS, the 3D is not part of it at all. The little mini game that you play, sometimes you have to go into camera mode and then take pictures. It looks okay. It's just, it seems like a really frivolous thing to put 3D onto because you're in first person, and it kind of wants you to move the system around. So it doesn't, I don't really think that's a really good thing to do it in. What you want the 3D in is in the battles, because that would look cool, seeing, all the Pokemon fly out and do all the things, but not there. So it's only part of that small aspect, and the demo itself kind of killed it for me. I think I said before that I want to buy this game, and now I'm looking at it and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. James, you're still interested in buying this or no?
Maybe.
I think some of it, too, is just seeing end of the year, with November being a huge month for 3D movies. It's probably the biggest month since, June, where, every week is another 3D movie. And I'm going to try to review as many as I can, but, we got the Trolls movie, we got the Fantastic Beasts, we got that Maui movie from Disney, we got Doctor Strange. So we got a ton of 3D movies next month to see, and I'm going to try to see all of them or most of them and review them. And I just don't see myself having time to play Pokemon. And then the month after that, December, is going to be getting ready for the holidays, and I don't know. I think I might still not have time to play it, and I don't know. So it's disappointing they didn't have 3D. And the demo itself kind of deflated my hype for the game, which would have been my first mainland game, So, I don't know. I don't know if it's really worth it for me. So, let's keep going here. I mentioned Fantastic Beasts earlier, and we mentioned before how it's going to be a trilogy. And now it's going to be a 5-part series, which is extremely arrogant and way too confident of Warner Brothers to be assuming this movie can sustain itself for 5 movies, for 5 sequels, 4 sequels for 5 movies total. It looks like a good movie, but
does it mean that it will be a good 5-part movie? I mean, think about it. The only reason why the Harry Potter films got away with making so many was because there were so many books.
Yeah, I agree. And all the books had different storylines. So
Exactly.
This is really an unproven franchise, or if it's going to be a franchise, and you're way too confident to give it 5 movies. to give it a trilogy was crazy enough. To give it 5, not many movies last that long. Harry Potter is actually one of the only few ones that works for the entire series because it was well made. But like other than one, I don't really see people. Do people really care when it gets to like the 5th movie? And
Yeah, I mean, the only films I can think of that like last a long time are like
horror movies, like Saw.
Yeah. Like the one I was gonna bring up is like the slasher movie franchises, like Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween. And the thing is, those aren't really, the sequels aren't very good. I mean, there's arguable exceptions, but generally the rule goes, the more that they make, the crappier they become, and the more contrived.
Exactly, and we saw here with like Jurassic World, that's technically the 4th Jurassic Park movie, and none of them have been able to.
It'll be enough for a trilogy, like, and it's kind of the arrogance, like, okay, Jurassic World, okay, we're the 4th film, yeah, it's an entirely new series now. It's called Jurassic World, and we're gonna have enough material for a trilogy.
Okay, we got some other examples. Let me just throw this out here. Star Trek, but all of them are different, so it's not really
Yeah, well, all of them
the
are
same.
different, but the thing is that every other one of them is terrible.
And then, James Bond has a huge amount of sequels. And that I did agree with you on that one. Every other one is good. It's very bad on James Bond. I really, really hated the last James Bond movie. I thought it was terrible. I love Skyfall. I think Skyfall is fantastic. I thought Quantum of Solace was terrible. I really like Casino Royale. And, it's off and go. And, have a franchise like this have 5 movies, it's really crazy. It really is insane.
It's insanity. Honestly,
It makes Warner Brothers look desperate. That they want a franchise so bad, they're gonna try to make this the 5 series. I give them credit though. I give them credit for bringing back the original writer. So she did, is part of this series. But at the same time though, you can't be stretching these out. People are getting tired of this. I don't think you liked the Hobbit movies, right, James? You watched all those?
The Hobbit movies were good. But it doesn't mean that I'd like 5 of them.
I know, but that was 3 movies there.
Yeah.
Now, were they as good as the original Lord of the Rings? I don't think so.
No.
So we're getting to a weird thing where these corporations are so excited about franchises, they're not thinking about how they actually make it that far along,
Yeah. And the thing is that it's like they think, okay, because we struck it rich one time, that means we're going to strike it rich all the time.
And it's not true. It's not true at all.
It's like if they just announced, hey, after the 3rd Plants of the Apes reboot, we're going to start a 5-part Plants of the Apes series. Like, is it really going to be enough?
Yeah. And then, of course, it's all before the first one comes out. So we don't know the quality of this. We don't know if it's a failure. If it's a failure, Warner Bros. Is going to look like an idiot for having a 5-movie franchise of a failing movie.
And what I get from this, what I get from the whole Harry Potter, we need to continue the Harry Potter climatic universe. Like, that's what I get from this. Like, I kind of get it from Warner Brothers is trying to have its own Marvel universe, kind of. Like, after this, we're going to get another spin-off,
It's actually true because there is that Harry Potter as the Half-Blood Prince or something. I don't know. The one that's on a stage play, and they're wanting to make that into an actual movie. So they want to have an eighth Harry Potter movie on top of the Fantastic Beasts movie, and they're desperate. It's kind of sad, just like they did this with Hunger Games, and it wasn't the same as Hunger Games, but just saying, well, they just split up these movies, make them too long, and really try to milk people for these games, And I'm hopeful. Fantastic Beasts looks like a good movie. I don't think it looks like a fantastic franchise movie that you get 5 movies out of, but it looks like a fun, good movie. Now, it just seems really crazy. I'm not a fan of this at all. But, you never know. It may work out in the long run. I think pretty much everyone was thinking that Disney was crazy and Marvel was crazy to plan out, for Avengers movie, and that all these movies are going to lead up to it, and they made it work. So maybe Warner Brothers can do it too, but that's really, a risky, crazy idea.
Yeah,
so now, kind of speaking about Marvel, the executive talked about VR and how she says that VR should tone down the violence some because she just wants that. Now, it's actually kind of interesting. I usually am not for toning down violence in art. Art is art, because I kind of see that in virtual reality, it can get a little bit more crazy, where you're there and you see something really crazy, and it may really affect you, much more than before. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I get, but the thing is that you can't, and this goes for everything in art, you can't just say, this can't be violent, this can't be this violent. It's one of those barriers. You would say, I would like for them to not have this much graphic violence, but when you start enforcing it, it becomes like a communist regime.
Censorship.
It's just one of those things where it's like censorship. And I think that shows cover this a lot. Shows cover like the issue of censorship and how, if something's violent, then maybe it shouldn't be censored because, freedom of speech. And another reason why I can see this being a problem is that the virtual reality kind of opens up for a lot of things. And, not a lot of it is like there's violence, but there's also, I've seen a lot of things proposed for the virtual reality that are like erotica and things. So,
yeah.
I mean, I personally, don't want people starting to police, oh, you can't make it violent, because then they're going to be like, oh, you can't make it adult content either, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's a good point, though. We got to mention that virtual reality is becoming so lifelike and so literally virtual reality, that it may become more, harder to digest that entertainment. It may be, it may be just too much for, if you watch a pornographic video on the internet, it's one thing, but if you watch it in virtual reality, it may really kind of shake you up because it's, that viewpoint is different,
It might work better, maybe, in more immersing you, because that was the entire idea. That's always been the idea, is to place you, and getting graphic here, placing you in that situation, placing you within that fantasy. And when you have the VR, it will increase that. It will make it better and more marketable. And say what you will about it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it personally, but the thing is that I'm a big advocate for free speech. And if people want to make that game, and if people want to play it, then I'm not going to stop them. That's the free market.
So yeah, I think that's a good thing, though. We may have to really have a good, the ESRB may have to really have teeth where little kids, you wouldn't want to have a little kid playing a game where you're killing people and it's very realistic in virtual reality. That may really be traumatizing for the little kid. You may have to have a lot more safeguards, a lot more parental controls, a lot more,
Yeah, and this is this is kind of something that I was thinking about the VR when you talk about it. Maybe the VR isn't supposed to be for kids. maybe it's just not. Because
Yeah.
if you look at, I mean, yeah, there's silly games you can play with it. You know, you'll see people playing all these silly games with the Oculus Rift and things. But, you know, the price is really pricey. You know, it's not like a bunch of kids are going to be getting this for their birthday or something. So, I mean, I have to say, we should give guards for this, but also, how about just make it one of those consoles? I mean, this is kind of weird, but I think that the majority of people buying this are adults.
Yeah. The one thing I always thought about, I don't know if you ever thought about this, James, and first-person shooters, right now, we've gotten really desensitized to it. And we've never really had a first-person shooter where if you shoot someone, it very realistically shows how they would actually be. Like, you don't actually see, you know, I hate to be super graphic again, but you don't see someone's actual brain splattered on the wall and coming down. You don't see actual intestines and people crying to die in a cave. You don't see that. It doesn't go that far, but you can do that in virtual reality, and that could be really intense, you know.
Yeah.
Well, right now, if you kill someone in a first-person shooter, they might have some blood on the wall behind them, but you don't see their guts and them on the floor crying and, you know, that kind of extreme, you know. But we're getting to that point where it's possible, where it's not just...
And the thing is that if there is something that is introduced like that, most likely people eventually at some point will be desensitized to it. And I say this because this is the thing. In the 1900s, if you look at the people from, and there have been studies to show this, and I have also, funny enough, there is a game, right, where it's called Call of Cthulhu. It's a role-playing game, right? And it takes place in the 1920s. And they have a specific game mechanic called insanity, right? And I think this relates to what we're talking about. The people in the 1920s were not desensitized to violence at all. And if they just saw, like, someone die or a dead body, they have the possibility of, like, having serious mental breakdown or something, just because they're completely not used to seeing that stuff.
So yeah, I think that's kind of what the person was mentioning, that maybe we should think about that. And I think that's a discussion. You know, I don't want censorship. I agree with you. For, you know, censorship is bad, but you also got to make sure that the right kind of people can see this. Because you don't want a little kid to be playing something super violent and it totally, you know. So it's one of those, that balance there where how do you make art but not make it totally, you know.
Yeah, and it's like a double-edged sword for me, because it's like you got to make it like it's too realistic, it's too graphic. That's the point, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and again, like, I kind of branched it off into talking about, you know, all the other types of games that they can make for it. But really, virtual reality is, as I said before at the beginning of the year, it's going to start becoming mentioned more and more, because it's going to be huge when it becomes big. And I guarantee you eventually it will. When it becomes more mainstream, people will be using it a lot more.
And I think, you know, it's a good idea to start the discussion now, not to censor, but to start the discussion of how to not regulate, but how to make sure that the right people are able to see what they want to see. You know, and, you know, try to make sure that the safeguards are in place for parents to control things. And, you know, because, you know, I remember the first time, you know, I killed someone in a first-person shooter. Not in real life. I never killed anyone in real life. In a first-person shooter, was taking his golden eye, and, like, he, you know, fell down and he twitched, and it, you know, I actually kind of felt, oh, wow, that's kind of weird, you know. But then in virtual reality, you're in that world. It's like you actually are doing it. It's a big difference between, you know, and then, like I said, we haven't had a real game, you know, where you have the real consequences of how brutal war is. And PTSD is a real thing that happens to, you know, our military. And, you know, it is, you know, I could imagine living with that kind of pain of having to go through war. And having something that can cause PTSD, in a video game, actual being that lifelike is actually coming within the next, some of it starting now. But, I would hate to have a game that actually gave me PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. That could be really awful to, dramatically, like you said, we are getting desensitized, and some of it's fine. Art, I agree, it's freedom of speech, but at the same time, there's certain times where I don't want, I still feel guilty a little bit when the Pikmin die and little souls come out and they scream. I still feel guilty about that a little bit, and it's just like, it's a big difference between that, and, someone screaming, tell my wife that I loved her, and you see their blood gushing out, and, on TV we get to see a lot of that with, CSI, and have all this really graphic gore, and like to really see that in a video game and that you caused it hasn't gone there yet, and we're going to get there soon, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, we adapt. I mean, as us, and we're both Americans here. We're pretty violent, we are okay with a lot of violence. In Europe, they're really okay with sex and nudity. Yeah. And they are not okay with violence over there. Yeah. And we're not okay with nudity over here. And it's a weird kind of thing where virtual reality does everything and anything. There's no, right now it's the Wild West. And, Sony has its VR headset, and there's, but you could do anything to it. You could plug any HDMI port into the virtual reality and play it. You could, if you want to plug in the Wii U, you could plug in and play Wii U games in your virtual reality, in your headset. I don't know if you read about that, that you have that option with the HDMI input to do that. So it's kind of neat, but it is interesting to think about how we're going to get desensitized and how realistic the graphics will be. It's kind of one of those things that's kind of strange when you look at it, because, like, how many video games do we play and we have to kill things, and, we just, whatever, you kill a Goomba, you squish it, whatever, but if that Goomba was, like, screaming in agony every time you squished it, you feel a little bit different, If those graphics are a little bit more realistic, Mario would be a very different game, So it's interesting to think about this future and talk about it, and it's going to happen. So, any other thoughts on that, James, or no?
Not really. I just, I've already kind of discussed what I mean by that, but that's my personal opinion about this thing.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying too, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting. You may get to the Matrix where we don't know we're in real virtual reality anymore. We don't know what's real, what's not real. And that may be 10, 20 years away, where you plug in and don't even know you're in virtual reality anymore, and you totally lose sight of everything. And
I think that eventually we'll get to that point. Yeah.
So we covered a lot of ground in this episode.
Yeah.
We got a new Nintendo system. We got virtual reality. We got movies. We got everything in this podcast. So a little extra long, but we covered a lot of ground. So I hope you enjoyed this.
And we shall continue to do this on the next show. So I'll see you guys later.
We'll try. I don't know if we could talk about extreme violence every time.
Yeah. Extreme violence and nudity next time. But,
yeah, that's going to be it for this show. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that's going to wrap up this podcast.
Remember to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, love, whatever. Heart it, do something.
3D or 2D.com can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, and SoundCloud. And if you want to send us email, our email address is email3d or 2d at gmail.com. And thank you again for listening. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.